Carl Lanning from Brazos River Charter School with This Week in History, specifically the week of February 23rd through 29th. 29 days this time around. Leap year. Well, there's all sorts of traditions that have to do with leap year, but the one that I ran across comes from Scotland. There is supposedly a law that was passed in 1288 that would allow on leap day only for women to propose to men. Sometimes this day in Scotland is called Bachelor's Day. There's no real evidence as to whether or not there ever was actually a law that said that, but it has become sort of a thing throughout Europe and actually used to be in the United States as well. Remember, in the US, it was any year that was a leap year that at any point the woman could propose. In most European countries, it had to be actually on leap day. Now, supposedly, under Scottish law, if the man refused, then he was fined. Other countries handled it differently. In Denmark, if he refused the proposal, then he had to give the woman 12 pairs of gloves. If it was in Finland, it was enough material to make a dress. So, leap day proposals. What else do we have? If I can get this to work right. There we go. Mentioned to you last week, Australian nun Sister Janet Mead's song, The Lord's Prayer. On February 23rd of 1974, it entered the Billboard Top 100 charts. It stayed on the charts for 13 weeks and would eventually make it to number 4. It's a really difficult to describe song. You can find it on YouTube. Sister Janet Mead, The Lord's Prayer. There's actually a little video that goes along with it too. Rock, folk with a little bit of psychedelia thrown in. It's really is hard. You just have to listen to it for yourself. You be the judge. It is, however, if you want a gold record for it, the only top 10 Billboard hit that has Jesus as the writer. Now, he does figure quite prominently, however, in a book that has been a perennial bestseller for about the last 1,600 years or so. Anyway, moving on. On February 25th of 1913, the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution was officially put into effect, better known as the income tax. The original bill provided for 7 tax brackets from 1 to 7%. The grand total was if you made less than $5,000 a year, which most people did, then you didn't have to pay any income tax whatsoever. So only about 3% of the American population did. The tax code also was about 400 pages long. Today, there's a little debate about how long it is, but if you write off to the United States Government Printing Office, and I think it costs you about $1,000 to do this, to actually get the United States tax code mailed to you, they will mail you 16,000 pages. So, oh boy, great day in history, the income tax. Well, next we have Mr. William F. Buffalo Bill Cody, born February 26th of 1846. Buffalo Bill had an eventful life, to say the least. He claimed that he worked as a Pony Express rider when he was 14 years old. There's no evidence that actually happened. But we do know that he served as a scout in the Army. He was an Indian fighter. He worked as a buffalo hunter to feed the crews that were building railroads. The man had a very eventful life, and some of the events he claimed happened actually did. He was a pretty good storyteller too. What he is probably most famous for, though, was starting the Buffalo Bills Wild West Show and Congress of Rough Riders in 1883. They toured the world for 30 years. It was highly successful. Think of it as being sort of a cowboys and Indians circus. They would have everything from trick riding, they would have mock buffalo hunts, they would have Indian fighting, bank robberies, shootouts, trick roping, and most importantly, trick shooting. Now, Buffalo Bill was no slouch when it came to shooting. However, the star of the show unquestionably was the very diminutive Annie Oakley. She was amazing with any kind of firearm that you put in her hands. Some of the documented tricks that she would do would be to shoot a nail that had been balanced on top of a stick from 25 paces away. Her husband would hold a playing card sideways to her, and using a Bowie knife as a mirror, she would shoot across her shoulder and split the card in half. They would throw dimes in the air, and she would shoot the dimes out of the air. They would throw playing cards in the air. She did the playing cards multiple times before they ever hit the ground. A little bit later in life, she and her husband acquired a dog that they named Dave after a family friend. And Dave, there's Dave. They would put a small apple on Dave's head, and from usually a distance from what I've read, about 20 paces or so, she would shoot the apple off of Dave's head. Now that's not a bad shot at all, but honestly, I'm a lot more impressed with the dog. The first time that was ever done to me, I don't think I would get near me with an apple again. As the grand finale of her performances, though, what would happen is she would ask for a member of the audience to stand up on stage, to light a cigarette, put it in his mouth, and she would shoot the ashes off of the cigarette from about 25 paces away. Invariably, no one volunteered for this, so her husband would play the part of a volunteer. In 1887, however, while they were performing in Germany, she asked for a volunteer, and someone other than her husband stepped up on stage. It turned out it was the Crown Prince of Germany, the future Emperor Wilhelm II. He was the emperor during the First World War. Now, nobody's sure if it was quite exactly like the ad or not, whether she shot the ashes off the cigarette out of his mouth, or whether she did it with him holding it in his hand. She did perform the trick, however. Decades later, though, when World War I broke out, Annie Oakley allegedly wrote a letter to the now Emperor Wilhelm II asking him for a favor. She wanted a second shot. Annie Oakley was a real piece of work. Anyway, that's it for this week in history, but just to let you know what's coming up. Next week, we'll find out how Dr. Seuss helped win World War II. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week. I'm Carl Lanning, Brazos River Charter School, and we look forward to seeing you right here next week.